Hey, writer, if you're ready to level up, then buckle up. Get your pen and paper ready. It's time for another episode of the Art and Business of Writing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Art and Business of Writing podcast. I am your host, Chris Jones, where today my guest is Alicia Riley. Alicia Riley holds a Bachelor of Arts Degree in Fine Arts and a Master in Business Administration Marketing, is the author of The Power of Events and the Virtual Event Planner. She is a professional event producer and an educator who began studying in the field in 1996, an era when the profession was foreign to many and educational or training options were limited. Riley believes any goal is possible if you commit yourself to work for it, and she reaches every professional goal she sets based on her list of lessons that are critical to any event planner's success. In 2002, the Glendale, Arizona native launched a business and amazed clients with her event planning knowledge and expertise. This led to a teaching position and service as a professional speaker in the event planning industry. Her motivational speech, The Power of Events, educates audiences about special events and life planning. She refuses to be content and is committed to staying current in her profession. In 2020, Riley earned Digital Event Strategic Certification, which allows her to help companies transition in-person events to a digital platform. Her recently published book, The Virtual Event Planner, provides a detailed personal guide to all aspects of virtual event planning, which will be an inspirational and indispensable resource for anyone already involved in event planning or anyone who may be considering a career in their profession. And I will say on top of that, for anybody who would like to create an event. Without further ado, Alicia Riley. Hey, Alicia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so can you expand upon your bio a little bit more and kind of flesh out some of the details?
Wonderful. Yes, I'm originally from Glendale, Arizona. And actually, my father was in the military, which brought us over to Virginia. I actually went to college at Christopher Newport University, in which I studied a field that was actually not truly defined, and that was special events. And so I had some great mentors as well as found some resources between actually going door to door with businesses, lawyers, between designers from New York that helped develop my career as an in person event planner to a hybrid event planner and now a virtual event planner.
Quite a progression there, huh?
Yes.
So tell us about your life as an event planner. What do you do?
Yes. So actually, I'm consider myself to be a little bit more than an event planner. I actually think event planning is a healing experience. I know some people, when they think about event planning, think, okay, so what type of decorations are we going to have? What type of food is going to be served at our event? I'm actually a different type of planner in which I study the person or the company and I find out what their norms are as far as their lifestyle or company traditions, and I change them. So I do a little bit of psychology behind each person, and I definitely take what they told me and I translate it into a new experience. And I look at all types of metrics between their um, from their lifestyle to actually demographic, what have you, to determine what would be the best outcome and the most memorable outcome for them in an experience.
That's cool though. Just being able to kind of get inside the mind of the person so that what you do really fits.
Exactly. A lot of clients that I work with, they will definitely come with a vision board, something from Pinterest, as well as huge notes from journals. And I definitely listen to all of the discussions and what their heart's desires are. And then I tell them to put down their book because I want to get to know who they are. I want to make sure their lifestyle and who they are as a person can be identified within their scope of their event.
So now you have a brand new book that you just published. Can you talk about the book a little bit? Tell us about that.
Yes, so the virtual event planner was actually, I began writing it February 2020. So I was part of the industry as it was hurting with the pandemic. And I had a supervisor that mentioned to me, she said, Alicia, the governor said no more events. So you know what that means. And so I said, yes, I do know what that means. That means we get to re strategize and rediscover what event planning can be. And I refuse to give up a job that I really adored because of in person, because we couldn't do in person events. And so I did one event, and that was our commencement ceremonies. I helped different organizations with their commencement, as well as, there are so many people around the world that didn't know what to do because of graduation. And I planned my first virtual commencement and I fell in love. I really found that with my love of discovering the person, that this was even better. Because after I plan an event based off the person, the organization, I don't get to hear their thank yous. I don't get to hear their comments. I get great job or, oh my gosh, Alicia, this is fantastic. And I get great memos, but there was something different about this virtual experience. I actually heard from 220 individuals as the event was occurring through chats, through video, and the word thank you came across the screen very clearly. And everybody heard it. Everybody that viewed this commencement, they were able to understand why the faculty was important, why the staff was important, why clubs and organizations were important, and how each student leaned on each other as well as their family. And so I didn't want to just stop there. I continued to do extensive research on this thing called virtual and found out virtual, of course, is not a new thing, but it's new to a lot of people. I created a strategy that I thought would work well for event planners that were going through the same dilemma that I was, and that's the possibility of losing a job. I studied, I went back to school, I became certified in digital event strategy, and then I tried out all the techniques that I wrote on corporate companies and realized I knew I had something. I knew I had a document that can help multiple event planners, people within the event industry, hospitals, anybody who fundraises. They could read this book and understand how to piece together a virtual experience to not lose a job, not lose a person's celebration, but to keep life going. So that's what the virtual event planner is all about.
I love that you found opportunity in the midst of a great difficulty like we had last year.
Yes.
I mean, last year was unique for events. Like it completely shut things down, and you saw people were just kind of baffled. Like, well, what do we do now? How do we keep our audience engaged? How do we keep things going? And it changed the way we work all the way around the board.
Definitely. Right after I completed the book, I started to get hired by local companies, organizations to not only like, here's my manuscript, but to go within these companies and to train their internal event planners. This is what you do. I did not mind sharing what I have learned, and I help so many companies grow. And this is something, even if we go back in person in a few months, and definitely fingers crossed with in-person events, this is something that I believe moving forward, everybody should know as a plan A or plan B. And so working with these companies and organizations and teaching them what I know has just it's been a delight. I truly enjoyed working with the companies.
What's the difference between planning a live event and planning a virtual event?
So, planning virtually, there's actually 80% difference between an in-person and a virtual experience. So the difference is you're senses are gone if when it comes to virtual. So when you walk into, let's just say, a grand ballroom, you may smell that dinner, that's going to be served to you, and you see the beautiful flowers and everything that's around you. So it really wakes up your senses. When it comes to virtual, the two things that hold to be strong is content. What are you saying? And how well are you saying it? And so a lot of different companies are having that challenge of that translation between all the what we call the extra fluff no longer exist. So that is for me, one of the major differences. And even people who attend events, they tend to virtual events don't want to pay more or pay the same as they would in person because they feel like, you know what, I didn't get the food. I didn't get the flowers. Instead, are you hearing the message? The other thing that I think the difference is that it's more labor intensive. It's more time for planning. For example, when I'm in person, I can hire a vendor for flowers. I can hire a vendor that does cinematography. And basically, I'm looking over an agenda, making sure that the timelines, agendas are straight and everybody is moving in a nice flow throughout the event. When it comes to virtual, I have to know that I have to understand the technology behind it. I have to understand the voice control. I am, sitting behind a desk with headphones and a microphone giving cues to people all over the world of what's next to come. And, it really is about that strategy. That strategy first is so crucial when it comes to virtual event planning.
Yeah, that was something that came to mind as you were speaking, and you touched on it a little bit. Is just the fact that there's a technological component to it. Because with a live event, everything is laid out before you, and you can move around between things. You can have actual conversations with the various speakers who are all there in a room together. The audience is all right there. But then when you're dealing with technology and online, it's a matter of, is everything up online? Is the interface working okay? Are you having difficulty with your microphone? Like, how do you overcome a lot of those challenges in the virtual side?
Okay. So first, I had to receive a lot of training between learning how to work a switcher, a mixer, working with monitors, and understanding how the equipment works, number one. Number two is we have rehearsals. We have to have a rehearsal prior to a virtual event. I work with the speakers and the presenters. We make sure that we look at everything from their what we call our interior design backdrop. We don't use green screens. We make sure that they're in a wonderful environment that can be translated through the computer screen. We also send out, if sometimes we have to send computer equipment to the speaker to make sure that they are well equipped to deliver a fantastic message. The other things that we have to do is no, it comes between knowing that we do have a safeguard because we have something called a pre-record. And we have pre-records that are on plan B that if there was a tech issue that we can run a commercial, we can run another segment. And all those things are explained in the virtual event planning book.
That's amazing. Like, I would have never thought of that.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think that's why there are professionals like you who do this and who understand it. Because most of us out here are like, well, let's all just hop on Zoom and have a conference. And it's like, no, you're like, no, there's a lot more than just hopping on Zoom and having a conference. There's a lot of intense planning to make sure that people still have the same sort of user experience that they would have if they were live.
Absolutely. I even just working with Zoom or WebEx or any type of platform, that is what I call, step one of learning a virtual event. And I consider to have about four steps with, working step four being the ultimate virtual event in which you're working from one country to another country and you're working with time zones and translations and some wording that could be unfortunately could be a lingo in one country that could be offensive to another country. So there's so many aspects to look at when you're going virtual, because you're basically worldwide when all the information is uploaded onto the internet. And you have to take all those things into consideration.
Talk about those 4 steps. Can you lay them out for us?
Sure. So step one is definitely what I just mentioned. It could be the interface of your cell phone. It could be a basic phone call. That is considered a virtual experience. From one phone call, when you order something on Amazon or any other company, that is a virtual experience. So people don't realize that we're already using that even way before the pandemic. Step two could be what I call your second grade, and that is, you're on Zoom. And you may know a few aspects of the Zoom platform or a WebEx or a StreamYard, and you could be doing things as chat. You could be doing breakout rooms. So that definitely takes it up a notch. Step level three is what I consider where you're starting to work with speakers in different parts of the country, different parts of the US. You're working with time zones. You're working, as I do, when you're bringing in the speaker the day before to make sure they are good to go. You know the whole technology behind the scenes between like I mentioned, your switchers, your mixers, your documents. You're writing out what I call blocking notes, and blocking is a segment to be aired, and there's a reason behind each segment. And you're working with what I call blocking sliders. So you know how to transition, if not mix up, um, or exchange one segment to another segment, or a frozen blocking note, which that means it's a segment that cannot be moved in your program. So you definitely have more understanding of the virtual experience. And level four, as I mentioned, is going to be international, that you're working with a translator. You are connecting with another event planner from another country. You are making sure that you're following the bylaws and customs of another country in order to showcase something virtually. This takes high level of security to make sure that your event is translated well, that your content is direct, and that there is an approval between your company that could be in the United States to a company that is overseas.
So for a person who wants to start a virtual conference, how would I do that?
I would say number one, training. Even if it's just learning some of the basic technology, some of the basic techniques, training. And the training would come from, if you wanted to produce an event, is your local AV company. There are some great companies within the area that could offer just a little bit of training. Secondly, Zoom. Learn Zoom between your chats, between learning how to put people in their breakout rooms. Everything can be learned. Everything is online to learn. As well as, I mean, there's several individuals that host, you know, events between 2 to 300 people in the comforts of their living room. Learn about lighting. Learn about how to make sure that everything that you're speaking of as far as content, that people are still alert. There's certain learn about gamification. So, and that what that means is you could put someone in a breakout session. You're going to say, you know what? I need the next person to speak. I'm going to drop 2 people in a breakout room, and I want you to rock, paper, scissors this. It may sound a little juvenile, but these are classic skills that will alert people when someone's staring at a computer screen for a long period of time. You have to learn that every 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, that your segments should be changing in order to keep the person alert. So those are just little tidbits of getting started, but I highly recommend anybody, everybody try a virtual experience. You will fall in love with it.
I think what I love about your story though is that you weren't afraid to pivot. Have you read the book Who Moved My Cheese? I'm sure you have, right?
I actually have not.
No. Oh, wow. It's a phenomenal book. So, last year is a really great example of that book at work. Like last year, it's about these mice and like they're all used to coming to one place and getting their cheese. And then one day the cheese moves to a different part of the maze. And so you've got last year, you've got people who wait around and say, okay, well, my cheese, it's going to come back maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. We'll get back to normalcy in a month or two. The pandemic will be over. We'll go back to live stuff. And then you've got those people who say, okay, it's not going to go back to normal. Let me go find this cheese and figure out where it is and just make hay while the sun shines while I can find it. And then you've got the people who just say, well, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait it all the way out. Eventually things will come back to normal. The cheese will get put back right where we had it before and it's going to be A-okay. And I feel like we're at that place now where we're a year in and it's like the people who like yourself who pivoted and said, okay, I'm going to go find the cheese, found the cheese, and they took advantage of it. Like they did the virtual events. They found ways to reach their clients. You have the people who waited it out for a while. They're behind the curve now. They're moving along looking for it, but they're behind the curve because they didn't go as quickly as the early adapters. And then you've got the people who are still waiting, who may have lost jobs or just hanging around. And I think that it's just what you did just by pivoting kept you very relevant. And I think it's important. I think it's an important lesson for all people that we can't control things like a pandemic. We can't control things that are just so out of our reach, but we can control our response to it.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, when I, received notice that, hey, Alicia, no more events, that wasn't, no was not an answer for me. And it's because it dates back to when I started learning events at Christopher Newport that I believe that events are healing, events are needed. There's no way in a world I would look at a 5-year-old or somebody who just graduated from college, spending all this time and years of dedication, or someone who's turning 60, or someone who just made the perfect sandwich to say, you know what? I can't celebrate you today because, there's always a way.
Yes, there is. So with live events, as things start to open up slowly, like how do you go about making sure that people feel comfortable in live events again?
So, number one, I really feel that we're going to be going hybrid for quite a while. Within the event industry, there's talk of still until 2022, and that's okay. To make sure people are safe is definitely social distancing. I don't require people to, and I'm also doing in person events, currently working on in person events. I don't require anybody to to come to a venue. My thing is, let me meet you where you are. Let me, because I am familiar with the virtual component, in person component, I know how to meet you at your comfort level. Number two is what I do with in person events is I do blocks on the floor, literally, is I draw blocks with tape, and each person is assigned a block. And within that block is enough space for the person to sit at their own table, to make sure that they have room if they need to take notes, or to feel comfortable within their 6 foot by 6 foot block. And then between that block, I draw another block that's 8 feet away from the other person. And then I supply everything that the viewer, the person who is experiencing the event in person, from water to the any type of hand wipes or anything that they're going to need, that is delivered to them, so they don't have to worry as much that supplies aren't there. When it comes to hybrid, if it becomes where they just don't feel comfortable within the space, you know, live streaming is the way to go. And so I've had people who actually just got out of their, went to the venue, but sat in their car. And then we can have food being delivered to the car. We know that they're out there, and we support them to, at their comfort level. So there's definitely some strategies that are in place. All the food now is prepackaged. Food, the forks and even the beverages, everything is being prepackaged and delivered the best way we can.
Yeah, I like what you said. You said like hybrid events are kind of here to stay. I think there's a benefit to that. I think for companies who typically do everything all live in the past, hybrid gives them a chance to reach audiences they'd never hit before.
Absolutely. I've been watching companies that said, why haven't we been doing virtual, years ago because of the reach. And for those who want to travel, absolutely, definitely at the comfort level and according to the guidelines. But that is that is something you choose. If not, the hybrid and on a computer, you still pay for the ticket to join the event. The companies are still making money off of it, and their branding has expanded.
Yeah, I did a story a little while ago on a yoga studio. And when the pandemic hit, she was like, "I'm not sure how we're going to reach people with yoga because our yoga's hyper local." But then she said once they started putting the curriculum online, she said they were getting people from everywhere
Mhm.
coming in, doing yoga with them virtually, doing their online courses. And she said it's been an amazing experience. And again, it's one of those things where something looks so disastrous like the pandemic, but then you get creative and say, well, how do I make this work?
Definitely. And what I tell people, even if they get 12 people, just for example, that show up to one of a virtual event and you're just really hoping for more people, know that these 12 people are involved in a community. And think about all the social media communities that are out there. So I belong to a group called Phenomenal Women, and virtual events are virtual events planners. So each one of those groups, one group has 10,000, one group has 2,000. So if you actually show up and you deliver the best you can to 12 people, do it again, and I bet you that your attendance will increase because the message has been given to all types of people, especially, when people tag online or offer a remark that says, this is what I'm doing today, and this is the link. You can also get that last minute push for attendance.
Now, what are some ways that people can get really creative with online events and hybrid events, even?
Yes. So I always suggest that people start with the wellness of the person. Always start with that. What does that mean? Start with a stretch that is safe for people while they're sitting down. Want to do things as I've done in many of the events where I bring in a yoga instructor. I bring in somebody with Zumba that is really just energizing people. Another thing that you would want to do is what I call screen within a screen. Get people active. Just don't have the person sitting on the opposite side of the screen staring. Tell them, I want to know this particular information in a chat. One thing, unfortunately, but very fortunately, when we get bored on a computer, we grab our cell phones. Tell people to grab your cell phone. I want you to look this up. I want you to do this. I want you to become active in this experience. Just don't sit and watch. I want you to learn. I want you to be a part of. Another thing that's so great is ask people to raise their hands where you can make them go live. Ask 4 or 5 people the same question so that way you get different responses and different reactions. So there are definitely so many ways of entertaining as well as having the person stay active within your virtual experience. One other thing I wanted to share, I know a lot of times people want to have a cocktail before an event. If they were in person, they may grab a cocktail before the event gets started. One thing that I do is I send the cocktail ingredients minus the alcohol to the person. And it
Ooh.
knocks, the delivery person knocks on the door that says, here's your content for your cocktail. Just add, whatever type of beverages that need to be added for your mocktail or your cocktail. And then right before your performance, right before your event, have a bartending service and say, this is how you're going to mix everything together. Try it. This is how you put the rim on. This is how you garnish your drink. Name the drink. I mean, still keep it so much fun and very entertaining for everyone.
Now, as far as once you finish your conference, Do you recommend people like put this on YouTube or on Vimeo or a place where people can watch it again? Or like, what are your thoughts on the post-conference thing once it's finished?
So with virtual events, actually, your event begins after your event. You're waiting for feedback. And because you can get analytics for all your virtual events, that means you could go back and you can detail what your customer, what your client, what your viewer, additional information that they want to know. So the important thing is that once you finish your event, you want to definitely touch back and you want to create something called is a pyramid. It is my viewer is at X level after my experience. So next, I need to create another event to get them from the bottom level to the mid level to the top level. And as you're building these experiences based off what your your stats read behind, after your event, those are additional costs. This is an investment for somebody that can go back in and say, you know what, I paid $50 for this particular conference, but because I gained so much knowledge, I'm willing to pay 75. And next I'm willing to pay 100. So those are also those things, with a virtual is it's not next year when it comes to in person when they say, oh, next year we're going to be doing the same conference. Oh no, you have to have that plan B in your back pocket when it comes to virtual. When people enjoy something, they want to invest in another.
Is there a different fee structure for virtual versus online? I mean, sorry, for virtual versus live.
That is a very challenging question. This is the way I look at it, is that your fee should not drop. If there's $100 or $50 a ticket, the viewer is still saving money because they're not traveling. Also, people don't understand that when you're at a level 3 or a level 4 event where you are starting to bring in technicians, this is costly. This is the cost of a food item, the catering service of an in person, and expenses still need to get paid. I highly recommend deliver and charge what it's worth. A lot of virtual events I have been attending could be a 1, 2 day conference, as well as you're speaking with, being around speakers from all over the world. And then someone comes in as an event planner and says, well, no one's going to go to this. I'm just going to charge $10. I'm just going to charge $15 because we need the attendance. No, what that does is it hurts the industry. It hurts the industry and it doesn't allow people to learn that it's still expensive, but you're still saving from not traveling. So I always say, still keep your costs pretty much between, don't go lower than $50, depending on how long and extensive the event is. As I put in my book, The Virtual Event Planner, is think about a college course. One college course somewhere could be $13,000, could be a little lower, but it's expensive. And within that time, they're only getting 32 hours of of content, right? Within a semester. You could be delivering something very close to that in one weekend and charging $15. It doesn't equal out.
What do you think a conference should be in terms of time?
So, as far as time, I wouldn't go over 4 hours. I think for someone to dedicate half a day on a Saturday or a weekend is a great time frame, knowing that each person is probably going to be about 30 minutes plus a 15-minute Q&A session of the event, works well. There's so many different strategies. So I did one event where it was a 1 week conference called 15 minutes a day. It's all the nuggets, all the information you're going to need in a short amount of time. And the attendance rate was skyrocket high for that event. But what I'm seeing as an average is that huge conferences are doing about a full day between about 8 hours. If you're doing an 8 hour event, please note that people need time to breathe, people need time for breaks, and there needs to be an opening and closing remarks in order to keep people engaged.
Any closing advice that you would give to someone who's planning a virtual event?
Yes, so know that you're already doing it. You have already experienced a virtual event. And really think about from the virtual perspective, which level do you fall under? The one, the two, the three, or the four? Also know that even as the world opens up, learn that technology. Stick with doing some virtual events. Greater your span and your reach of your company, and know that what is said could be said around the world. Also note is that with virtual events, content first and as well as strategy driven. So when it comes for time to plan your virtual event, what I like to do is what I call a scoping session. And what a scoping session is conversation that should not be limited. Let me say that again. It is conversation that should not be limited. Whatever is said is on the table. And sometimes these scoping sessions, I know when I work with different companies, could be about 2 to 3 hours plus to put all the information out. Look at your psychographics. What type of lifestyle, of a person are you inviting to the event? A lot of people say demographics, we say psychographics. We want to know what that person, lifestyle is like because we want to improve their lifestyle when they finish with your event. So definitely you're writing out, you're discovering what is needed. You're looking at the person and you're creating content. And once you write everything out, you have to find who can deliver the message best. And there is no problem with putting out information as though you are delivering or you're hosting interviews for your speakers. Just because a resume says that this person is 1,000% qualified, they've been is a possibility they may not know how to deliver from a camera, and knowing that the person that they're not in front of people, and so that their delivery is with the tone of their voice. So with that being said, having those interviews, making sure that the content that you have discovered during your scoping meetings is what is needed, the speaker can match it and deliver it. And then lastly, with that strategy, who's coming first? Who is going to be speaking first? How is this going to be delivered? Like I mentioned, you could be speaking about podcast, and the very first thing you want to do is do a voice exercise. Who's delivering that? What kind of strategy is that? Is that going to keep people alert and engaged, as also giving that learning experience that they need? So definitely content and strategy is the way to go.
So when it comes to people who pitch you as speakers, do they just for virtual events should they send video reels then?
This is what I do. Number one, just because they're on a speaker's bureau doesn't mean that they are 100% qualified. When you're doing your search, do a search for people in general. This could be someone that wrote a book 3 years ago that no one has heard of or what have you, but they could speak. This could be a community leader that, again, no one has heard of, but they can speak. Number two, opening up your mind that it doesn't have to be someone that is, quote, considered a professional speaker, is that you're going to write down the guidelines on what you're looking for in a speech. So one way is to definitely I YouTube a lot of speakers. I find them. I will give them a phone call. Once I have their contact information, I will contact them on the phone, not necessarily, of course, to introduce myself and to find out a little bit about them, but I'm also listening to the tone of their voice. I'm listening to how they're delivering as I ask them a little bit of a few questions here and there. So I'm really investigating about how their delivery method is. Another thing is I request a speaker's video to be sent. And the word that I ask them to say in the video is the word congratulations. Because a lot of times people will say words that have emotion and they don't know how to deliver it. So I know that this person needs training before they speak if they're 100% qualified everything else, and that's when that rehearsal comes in, or that they are ready to go, they are fit, they're what we're looking for, as a whole, and that extra training may not be needed. So there's a lot of techniques that go on behind the scenes.
Now you got me curious. So, how should a person say congratulations?
So So a little tidbit of information is that some people say congratulations. And saying it that way to a person that just completed their doctoral degree may not be the best route. So if you say congratulations, we're looking for the voice to go up, to hit a strong peak, to come back down. And we're looking for that I can actually hear and feel your smile behind the scene, that you're genuine about your way of delivering.
It's always the little things that work. So,
Yes.
I love it. Well, thanks for spending time with me today on the podcast. I mean, this is a great kind of primer on online virtual event planning. And the book is called The Virtual Event Planner, Production Strategies for Online Events by Alicia Riley. You can find it on Amazon. And Alicia, best of luck with all the things you're doing. Sounds like you're having a great time.
I am. And for those, I know we're getting ready to start in person again, and we're opening up very slowly for in person events. There's another book out there called The The Power of Events, again, found on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And that particular book actually explains how I got started as an event planner and why I consider events to be healing.
All right. And so, for anyone in our audience who says, "Hey, I'd love to consult with you. I'd love to talk to you more about virtual events and how to create my own," how do they reach you?
Yes, great question. So they can reach me at strategicvirtualevents.com. They definitely can reach me there on my webpage, and you'll see that there's a space on my webpage that says, if you need for me to reach you, if you want to be trained, I offer training courses for one-on-one event planners to corporate training. If you want to purchase the books, they're also on my webpage.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
How's that for inspiring? I hope you take action on one thing you learned in today's episode. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast and left a review on iTunes, I want to encourage you to do that too. Finally, be sure to visit chrisjonesinc.com to sign up for updates. Don't worry, I won't spam you. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode.